council meeting tonight. Before we begin our business, we deliberately open our minds and spirits to your holy will. Help us to be worthy in us. Guide us in each decision we make, that it might be as fair and just as it is economically sound, to the end that our community may achieve its highest potential and become all you want it to be. Amen. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the public's reference, a copy of the open meetings law has been posted on the northeast corner of this room. The posting complies with the requirements of the Nebraska legislature.
That's right.
That's okay.
First item on tonight's agenda is the consent calendar. Approval of minutes, payroll, claims, and council proceedings, along with resolution number 25-15, police portable radio purchase. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I do have a couple questions.
Sure.
For Chief Flynn, is that
Yeah,
all right?
absolutely.
Hi, Chief.
How are you?
I'm good. I know you covered this at the workshop, but a lot of times people tune into this.
Right, absolutely.
So I wondered if you could recap just briefly what we're getting radios and why we're getting radios.
Okay. So this is probably one of the most exciting things that I've gotten to be a part of since I've been the chief, is improving our radio system, because it's a really big deal. These radios that we have here are not public safety radios. They do not have the clarity, they don't have the range, they don't have the dependability, and most importantly, our officers cannot talk to any other agency, whether that's law enforcement or fire, outside agencies, state patrol. We cannot talk to anybody but each other, which obviously at the scene of a major incident can become a public safety issue. These are actually the exact same radios the security company used that I managed at Nashville before I came here. So they are not designed for public safety. The radios that we are ordering are designed for public safety. They are the latest technology. They are Motorola, which is Nebraska's approved vendor for radios. And once we get this radio system, we will be able to communicate with the Box Butte County Sheriff's Office, surrounding police agencies, the fire department, and really anybody in the state of Nebraska that we need to talk to, and even some agencies in Denver. So it's a huge advancement for us in reliability of communications and being able to talk to each other.
Okay, and what do you think the lifespan of the radios would be that you're purchasing?
These should be at least 10 years.
Okay, and I don't remember when you started at the police department, but when you started, they had non-working radios at that time? What did they have?
We have these radios that we have right now.
Okay, and I think the other thing I was thinking about, so the $180,000 is a capital improvement, and is it coming from public safety funds?
It's just coming from our capital budget.
Was it public safety money?
No, it's mostly from general fund reserves.
Okay, so we didn't move any money from public safety?
I'm trying to think. We did move. No, you're correct. It does come from public safety, as do the vehicle purchases and the remainder of the ambulance. You're correct.
Okay, so with the lifespan of 10 years, when the former chief was here, we spent $200,000 of taxpayer money to buy he-bought radios, and that came from public safety. And I know that's not your responsibility, but my question is, he showed up in January of 2022, it's now January of 2025, and that $200,000 is now being spent again. Am I right on that? Okay, all right, that's fine. I'd like to have that on the record if that's possible. That's all I have.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Anybody have other questions? If there's no other questions or comments, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Sherman?
Yes.
Councilman Liptak?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mashburn?
Yes.
And Mayor McGehee?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is resolution number 25-16. It will approve the Walters Investment for Economic Development Assistance in the amount of $200,000. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 25-16.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seth, you want to give a little background on this, maybe a little bit about the company, in case people aren't familiar with it, and how this fits into maybe a larger investment that they're making?
Yes, so this is a project that's located just southwest of us, off of the highway. The $200,000 that's being requested is only a small portion of the total cost of the project, being less than 5% of the total construction cost. And what this investment will allow them to do is to retain 8 employees who will live within a radius of 50 miles of the project for the life of it. And so it's bringing additional jobs, expanding the agricultural economic base of Alliance and making it stronger. You also have before you a letter from Hannah Robinson, who is the Fox Butte Development Corporation Director, expressing her support for this project as well. As she states, Walter Farms has demonstrated a strong commitment to our community through its ongoing investment, and the approval of this loan will allow them to expand further, creating 8 new jobs in the area. This is exactly the type of economic development we strive to support, and we believe it is of the utmost value that Walter Farms can take advantage of this incentive. And I would just echo that sentiment as well.
Everyone's familiar with what Walter Farms does?
And we have a representative from there.
Okay, yeah, would you go real quick? Sure. Tell a little bit about your business. How long have maybe you've been here in Alliance? And-
Okay. Yeah, so my name's Henry Neer. I'm the farm manager for Walter Farms here in Nebraska. Walter Farms has been in Nebraska since 2011, growing potatoes primarily for chip potatoes. We supply one of the nation's largest chip processors. So basically our background is all chip potatoes, supporting, the large chip producers here in Nebraska. And we farm, Alliance obviously, and then all the way through the valley, down Morrow County as well.
And can you state your address?
Like the farm address?
Your address.
My work address. The main address is 1721 South Main Street in Bridgeport.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any other questions or comments? If not, with the clerk call the roll, please.
Councilman Liptak,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mashburn,
Yes.
Councilman Turman,
Yes.
and Mayor McGehee.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is item C, board appointments. An application was submitted by Victor Sanchez to serve on the Alliance Housing Authority with his term ending December 31st, 2029. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to accept the board appointment.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Now will the clerk call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Mashburn,
Yes.
Councilman Turman,
Yes.
Councilman Liptak,
Yes.
and Mayor McGehee.
Yes. At this time, I'd like to invite Chief Rucker back to the podium, and he's going to give his annual report for the police department.
So all council members have a hard copy of the report in front of them, and by the end of the week, it'll be posted on our website for the general public to be able to read it. I don't want to read it to you, but I do want to go over just the highlights. The first thing you're going to notice is it's not a book. The previous chief's was 140 pages, and the ones before that were books that were 50 or 60 pages, which is fine, but communication was different back then. I am more about communicating with the community in real time and sharing information in real time and having it available whenever people want to see it. So this is something that people can actually sit and look through in just a short period of time and have a good summary of what happened in 2024, and the highlights of 2024 for the police department. And I think that we accomplished that with this annual report. I would offer that crime is down across the board. The only category, significant category that we had an increase in was burglaries. We were up by 1. And that was because if you remember, in the first half of 2024, we had a serial burglar who ultimately committed a home invasion and was shot by the homeowner, which is when that rash of burglaries actually stopped. In 2024, we made 118 arrests and took 13 guns off the streets. And we continue to do that on a daily basis. Since I've written this report, we've seized a couple more. Our mission is to stay proactive in the community, to be visible, to be patrolling, to be making traffic stops, to be answering our calls in a timely manner. And although we are shorthanded, I think we're doing a good job of doing that and just being involved in the community. The SRO is back in the schools at 50%. We're having quarterly community forums, which are being very well received. We're having a lot of good discussions at those forums. And honestly, everywhere I go in town, whether it's Safeway or the gym, or just on or off duty, people stop me. And the number one thing that I get from every citizen that I encounter is they appreciate how the police department is communicating, the transparency, the information that's being put out on social media, etc. So I think the public appreciates what we're doing. Since I've been here, we've updated our website, we've updated our policies. We are again updating our policies because we're going to adopt the state of Nebraska approved policy template. Because it just makes sense. It's what all the agencies around us use. It's tried and true. The legislature has reviewed it and approved it. And I'm sorry, the Crime Commission has approved it. And I just feel more comfortable using that policy. If I have an officer sitting on the witness stand defending our policy, it's a lot better when he can say, well, we're using a policy that's approved by the state of Nebraska and what surrounding agencies in this area are using. So once we get through reviewing that and making a few tweaks that are specific to our agency, I'll give that to Mr. Seltzer, and once he blesses it, that will become our official policy for both police operations and communications. We have added 7 vehicles to our fleet. They were all gently used vehicles, but that is a huge improvement from where we were when I got here, and we will continue in coming years to improve our fleet, hopefully. We are doing cell phone forensics now. We have a standalone computer for cell phone forensics, and not only are we doing it here in Alliance, but we're assisting other agencies. When our FBI counterpart from Omaha came down to meet me, he had heard that we had the technology, and it had gotten all the way back to him how much the agencies in the Western Panhandle appreciated us having the technology and assisting them. We are taking online payments. It blew my mind when I got here that in 2024, we have still only took cash or checks. So now if you're getting an accident report or paying your animal adoption fee or whatever the case may be, you can make your payments online through a QR code that we're not using. We continue to recruit. Recruitment continues to be a challenge, as it is in every police department in the country. We will be interviewing a certified sergeant applicant at the end of this month who has already passed all the preliminary testing, so that's a good sign. And we have 2 applicants in the pipeline to start the police academy in the next class this spring. So things are looking up on the recruitment front. As far as grants, we're still finishing out our COPS grant. We received the Rural Violent Crime Grant, which bought the camera trailer, and then we had some money left over in that grant, and we actually cleaned that up just recently, buying a couple more laptops, continuing to update our laptops that are in the vehicles. And we also received a couple of state mini grants, and I think we have one more coming, and that's helping us buy things like radar and mobile printers and things like that. So anything we can buy from these grants and not have to put it on the backs of the taxpayers, we are making an effort to do that. Speaking of, one of the few areas in our budget that went up this year was training, because I really wanted to increase the training opportunities for our officers. But I haven't had to spend much of it, because thanks to a connection that I had back in Nashville, I was able to identify the coordinator through the Secret Service who puts on a bunch of FBI and Secret Service sponsored trainings throughout the country. And we're going to be sending officers to several of these trainings in the spring and in the summer and even the fall, I believe. And these are criminal investigation type courses, computer forensics, phone forensics, crime scene investigations and things like that. And these trainings are 0 cost to us. The course is covered, the The travel is covered, even the per diem and the hotel, et cetera, is covered. So it's absolutely no cost to us for all of these trainings. And we can send up to 3 different trainings per year per officer who's qualified to go. As you know, we've caught up on our awards. We're now having our award ceremonies approximately quarterly. When I got here, there was a backlog of award nominations just literally sitting in a drawer. And so we made sure those officers were recognized, and we continue to recognize our officers when they do good work. We've made several updates in the communication center. Some new programs, some new computers, some new technology. They're now actually officially yesterday finally using the headsets, and it is much clearer, much better on the radio, less background noise. So we're excited about that. Also and this goes way before my time, and Tacey could probably tell us, but I'm told it's been at least 10 years since the comm center was fully staffed. And as of a couple weeks ago, the communication center is fully staffed. So that takes a lot of stress and workload off of those ladies and one gentleman. This year we had nearly 11,000 calls for service. We are now tracking substance abuse, mental health calls, some other things too. We've actually added disposition codes because we could always search those type of calls by keywords and things like that. But I wanted it to be something that was more trackable and more auditable. So we have now disposition codes when there's a call related to substance abuse or drug abuse, since it's such a problem in substance abuse or mental health, since those are such critical issues in our community. We're now tracking those with disposition codes, and we are the first police department in the Western Panhandle who is reporting that to Western Regional, to the behavioral health folks, and they are using that data. Now they've got other police departments coming on board providing that data. They're using that data to justify the additional funding that they're fighting for to get us more mental health and substance abuse resources. And I know there's a bit of a misconception out there that because we're shorthanded that we're not patrolling and we're not being proactive. And I just want to point out to you that we increased our traffic stops from 2023 to 24 by over 6 times. So traffic stops are the best indicator of being proactive. So the fact that they made more than 6 times the number of stops and almost triple the number of citations they issued shows that they are out there being proactive. They are patrolling. I see them do it, I hear them do it, and I get out there with them and do it. So I know that that's going on. I think the community appreciates that. The last thing I want to talk about is our data dashboard. Several pages in that report are snapshots of activity from 2024, traffic stops, calls for service, crimes, and things of that nature. And we've made some improvements to that data dashboard recently, and they're continuing to work on some more. Prior to me being the chief, there was a problem with data batching, which is when they send the data into the dashboard. It was too much at a time for the Microsoft server. On an email, you can only send so much. So prior administration stopped batching the prior year data. Well, when I had a conversation with the company that handled our dashboard, I said, that's unacceptable. I need that data batched, and I need you to correct this. And so what we ended up doing is I'm not a computer guy, but I could have thought of this. We're just batching more often, so that it's not such big piles of information. So when you look at that data dashboard, if you have any questions, know that everything's there. We are customizing all of our tables so that if you want to look at a certain time period or compare year to year, you'll be able to do that. There's more pages coming. There's an arrest page coming that's going to break down our felonies and misdemeanors and drug arrests and weapons and things like that. And they've been great to work with. There's a lot of things that I want to add to that report that we weren't capturing prior to me coming here that we are now going to capture, because if someone has a question about numbers, I'm happy to discuss it, but it's all right there on the dashboard where they can go ahead and look at, just pull up whether it's calls for service, traffic stops, arrests, crimes. It's all there this year, last year, prior years, anything you want to look at. So I invite the community, if you're curious, please look at our dashboard. We invested quite a bit of money and time into putting that together, and it's one of the easiest ways that we can be transparent is putting that information out there in real time. Unless you have any questions, that's all I have. Sure. Yes, ma'am.
So you said you're fully staffed, so does that mean you have 6 full-time public safety dispatchers and 1 supervisor, or what does fully staffed mean?
7 dispatchers, 1 supervisor.
Excellent. And then I noticed on your communications calls for service, there's no reference to 911 calls. How many 911 calls did you have in 2024?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was a little over 2,000. I don't remember the exact number.
Okay. And how many of those were related to Box Butte County that were transferred to Scotts Bluff?
That I don't know.
Okay. Also,
We could probably find that out for
I'm
you, but
sure
I
you
don't know
can.
off the top of my head.
All right, and then under, I do like the streamlining of the report. I think it's excellent. I'm looking at your law enforcement officer statistics, and there's nothing for DUI. Is there no DUI enforcement at all in 2023 and
No, it
2024?
says it back there.
I believe it's under the traffic section.
Thank you. Thank you. I just missed it.
That eventually will be on its own page too.
Okay, excellent.
Up one.
Okay. And then did you do, and I apologize, my eyesight isn't very good for anything small. Did you do, how many gun permits did you process in 2024?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I can get that
I'll
information.
catch you later.
Yes,
on
ma'am.
that. Okay. That's all I had, thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
And you said this dashboard is public facing on the website?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
It's listed on the left side, it's data dashboard.
One more quick question.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
fully staffed authorization for you is how many officers sworn?
19,
Okay, and how many do you currently have serving the community?
12.
And how many do you have at the law enforcement academy?
Right now,
Uh-huh.
0.
All right. So what is the per capita number of officers for our town? Do you know? If the population is 8,151, what do you think we?
Are you asking how many we should have?
Yes.
Well, there's many formulas and
I know.
many opinions on that.
I want to know your thoughts.
I would be happy, I would be ecstatic to get to 19. And if
Okay.
we think we need more, we can certainly talk about it.
Excellent. All right. When I started in 2000, there were 21 sworn officers. And it's done nothing but go down and down and down. And I know the population is no longer 9,700,
Right.
but I just don't know that we have enough. That's why I was asking.
I tentatively, I think we could be fairly comfortable at 19. I would
Excellent.
love to just be able to get there, to be honest with you.
All right. Do you have a dedicated detective, or are all your people trained in that type of work?
So, no, to answer your question, I have 2 people pulling double duty. David Leduc is a patrol sergeant, but of course, he's also our investigative lead, because he has all the experience and et cetera. And then Tyler Sherlock is 50% SRO right now, and then 50% investigations under David.
All right. And do we have a wing officer currently?
We will very
Excellent.
shortly. Parker's in the process.
Okay.
But because I can't afford to lose him, he's gonna just do it part-time in addition to his patrol shifts.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
And you said Wing was covering his overtime on that, correct? On his participation in the Wing?
Yes. Wing received a JAG grant, $150,000 per year for at least 2 years. Hopefully we'll be able to renew that. So all of his overtime should be reimbursable. I've already talked to Cindy about creating an avenue so that we can get that as a revenue stream.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
Chief.
Thank you.
And I will echo that. I think the rapid communication that's coming out of the office is very helpful. And so I agree with that sentiment. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is a discussion item for commercial revenues rate. And I requested this item on the agenda. As council members know, we did an audit, or the staff did an audit recently and found that there were several commercial defined customers that were not paying commercial rate of refuse collection. And some of those are paying a residential rate, some of them are paying no rate at all. They're not on our list of customers, they're not on H&H's list of customers. I've gotten some feedback, and I've talked to Seth a little bit about the existing ordinance. And my hope is that the original plan was to put those rates into effect the 1st of February for all of these customers at our existing commercial rate. My concern with that is that our commercial rate is much higher than what they can get at H&H. And I think it's important that we retain as much business as we can from the collection of revenues, not just running across the scales at the landfill. And so rather than encourage people to seek out other opportunities or other options rather than the city's rate schedule, I would like to give staff the opportunity to put that on hold until we can do a full review of our rates, what it's gonna take to be competitive, so we can get some of those businesses to stay with us, and also maybe even bring back some business to Alliance. The reason I'm asking for this is because according to the ordinance, the city manager is required to enforce the ordinance. And so it puts him in a dilemma if he unilaterally does not enforce that ordinance, then he comes under criticism for picking and choosing who has to pay a certain rate. But if we as a council direct him to take a pause, then we're giving him that authority to do some review and maybe bring us some options. So that's my spiel.
But the longer we pause it, the less revenue our landfill would be making off of and the commercial rate is only $6 more than H&H. And do we pick up twice weekly?
In some instances, yes.
In some instances, so some businesses get it twice a week at $126, where H&H is once a week for $120. So I don't think that we're going to drive businesses to H&H when they get, because to do it, pick up twice a month is then $240 at H&H. So, and I think the longer we push off introducing these rates, the more that it's affecting our landfill, since it is an enterprise fund.
So just to answer that, you can get a 90-gallon cart at H&H at a cost of $30 a month. And what I've heard from some businesses is they generate very little trash. It would fit in something like that. We just don't have that option to charge that level because ours start at $60 or $61 a month. And that's the least that we can charge. So if a business has the option of being charged $30 a month or $60 or $120 if it's a larger container, I think they're going to choose to go to H&H and pay $30 a month. And I don't want to encourage people to do that. I don't think waiting a couple of months to do a review, and I think after Seth and I's conversation today about the ordinance, I think the ordinance needs to be cleaned up quite a bit. For example, there is a requirement in our current ordinance, or in the article, that a business that hauls trash within the city limits is supposed to be under a franchise agreement. And Seth has not been able to find any kind of an agreement like that with H&H or any other business. I don't know if there's any other business that hauls trash within the city limits, but so we're not upholding our ordinance the way that we're supposed to right now. I just think we need to take a pause and clean it up. And I don't think waiting a couple of months, we're not going to lose that much income. How many months or years has it been since some of these people have been in?
So I thought, oh, I'm sorry.
That's right.
I thought the last time we talked about implementing the rates, you kind of knew the monthly amount it was affecting our revenue. Do you remember that amount?
I don't know offhand, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, seems like 6,000 sticks in my mind, but I don't know if I'm making that up or
I would say it's somewhere in that range.
around
yeah.
6,000. So for every month we delay, we're kind of behind $6,000. Is that
Not
sound
necessarily
about
behind, but it's unrealized revenue.
unrealized revenue? So how soon, Mayor, do you think you could get the ordinance cleaned up and?
I would like to give staff 30 to 60 days to get, and maybe some options other than what we're doing now. there's some things that Seth and I talked today in his office about that, I don't want to bring up here because they're just things that just ideas, and I would rather he be able to have a chance to flesh some of those things out before they're discussed in open, but, so I'm no longer than 30 to 60 days.
Okay, excellent.
And as an option, we could decide to move everyone to either a residential rate or some interim rates if we wanted to introduce something right away while we're working on that. So we could introduce the $30 a month rate for, as I look at the businesses that are on this list, they're all relatively small businesses. They're not going to generate a lot of waste.
Okay.
But, so we could also do that almost immediately. Introduce a $30 rate. Yeah, probably at the next, we have to wait till the next meeting probably to do that. To amend the refuse rate structure.
I'm in agreement with you, John. I think this was somewhat before my time when something started taking place, but it has been brought up to me numerous times about why our answer was to go to a private individual and not try to figure out a way to support our local businesses. I understand we still have to dump. H&H still has to come across our scales and they are paying on the back end, but that's the answers that we were giving to those businesses of, we'll just go with H&H, that didn't sit right with me. I mean, I'm with you on, we should be more than willing to work with those local businesses to provide a service that is provided to the rest of the people and businesses in this town. And we should be able to accommodate them on some form of revenue service.
But we also have to be able to have our enterprise fund pay for itself. We just borrowed $300,000 because the landfill didn't have the money for capital improvement. And H&H, every time they cross it, well, I shouldn't say every time, their average is $57 less per ton than what it costs our landfill. So we lose money when they bring us stuff. So,
Which is a good reason to try to recoup that back into our pocket and quit giving them $57.
exactly, so,
when we're driving people to them, we're also increasing that $57 a ton.
well, I want to know how and why we started turning people within our city to a private business. And if there's a way to, if you're in this radius of our city limits, we provide you trash service. And these are our rates, and all of them, and our rates are actually cheaper than Scottsbluff, Geary, and Chadron and Hay Springs, except on Swan's commercial. Because Swan's is one that does Chadron, Hay Springs, and there's a third one I forgot, Hemingford. So all of our rates are cheaper than area cities that have their own trash service. So I don't think it's unreasonable, but I do think it's unreasonable to have, in essence, a private business being subsidized.
And I believe that's kind of the goal that we're working towards, is to correct what has been in the past.
So let's bring it back to,
Maybe too, like, if you're a small commercial business and you don't need a great big dumpster, maybe we could look at a smaller, which we do not have, is that right?
That's
We do not
right.
have anything?
Yeah.
So maybe when, the city manager is doing his stuff, maybe we could research that with Public Works and have that information too at our,
Yeah, this is
They're
not gonna be
very
it's not gonna be a quick fix.
Right.
If we pursue providing the smaller containers for
Right.
commercial. Because it's just gonna take time.
It is.
We don't have it in this budget, so
And it's not in this budget anyway, right?
And I agree with you that we've got the expense of the landfill to fund, we have the expense of refuse collection to fund. But if we drive, if the H&H model, the private carrier model is profitable, then it makes sense for us to look at how we can capture back some of that business and not drive more customers to them. And that's my goal. I don't want anybody to have a free lunch. I think everybody should pay something. And, but because of the issues I saw in the ordinance today, as I reviewed it with Seth, and the issue that we found in the audit, I want to relieve Seth of the obligation to enforce it for times when we can review this and hopefully get it fixed, get it corrected.
Sooner.
Yeah, because his dilemma is, his requirement is to enforce the ordinance, the way it's currently written. And so we need to, if we agree with this, to give him some time to come with some options.
The rate study that's being done, do you know how long that'll take?
I don't have an exact timeline, but I'm hoping that we'll see that in about 3 months.
You staffed it up?
We did.
Okay. And didn't Randy Wagner used to do it prior?
So
Or
what
he staffed it up?
was implemented in 2012, if I'm remembering the date correctly, is we set a rate and then we just set a 1% increase every year.
Built into the budget?
Built into the ordinance.
Okay.
Built into the ordinance.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
So that was October of 2012.
Okay.
The issue that I have with that is that it was not reflective of our actual costs.
Okay,
And so,
all right.
in some years, that 1% might have covered inflation and cost, but not in every year since then. So we've got about 13 years of, well, minus the last 2 years where we've done substantial increases, where it was kind of just on autopilot.
There's something else that Seth noticed when he was reviewing the ordinance before we met today. That is according to the ordinance, as for instance, the commercial customer has to provide their own container.
Well, I don't like that either.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, I think, just a lot of things that we aren't necessarily enforcing or we aren't following, and I just feel more comfortable with, take this time to clean it up.
What was the last revision date of the ordinance?
Most of this, minus the definitions and the rate structure, most of this ordinance was written in 1986.
Well, then I think it's time for.
And it was probably written before that. That was just when statewide recodification was occurring, so.
There is a reference to spittoons
Oh, well, then,
in our current ordinance.
okay, I think it needs fixed.
There's still a thing.
As it's written now, we have residential and commercial, and we have 2 options for commercial. Can we direct to the cheaper option? I mean, so the people that aren't paying anything and the ones that are paying a residential rate, I mean, how big is a 90-gallon cart?
That's the size of your roll-off at your house.
I don't know. Like, oh, my
The
roll
one you
barrel?
roll down,
Okay.
roll down, the one you roll to the curb.
That's correct.
And that's kind of like what I would like to introduce in a smaller rate, similar to what H&H charges for a 90-gallon barrel, because I think a lot of businesses will probably fit into that. And the thing is, a lot of these businesses don't have their own container anyway. They share a container in and out of their businesses. So there's no way to prove which businesses,
We're using the dumpster
yeah, right.
without cameras.
Well, that's-
So what? Well, but the resident has their own individual, well, I think yeah, the ones that have alleys, I don't live in an area with an alley, so I don't have, that.
I have an alley, I love it.
So I think if we want to start to get in line with our ordinance, obviously there does need work on it, but it is, you have 2 choices, residential or commercial. We do have the leeway to go with the lesser amount for now.
Which is still not competitive with H&H, so we're still asking them, please just go to H&H if you want a cheaper price. That's my issue.
It is, but
And by the time we make any changes, they're already gonna be contracted with H&H and we can't get them back. And so I wanna take the time to try and keep them here until, as long as we can. That's why I wanted to put that pause.
I know that these 2 businesses that I have spoke to that will not come back from H&H because of this raise. Won't do it. Doesn't matter what we do with the ordinance from this point forward. firm because of this.
Is this a discussion item or an actionable item?
It's only a discussion item. I think in order to do a new rate, to introduce a new refuge rate, we'd have to put that on the calendar for the next meeting. Is that
Can I
correct?
take any action anyway? Yeah, so,
Well, the ordinance doesn't set the rates. We set the rates.
but we already said and approved whatever rates we passed a month ago?
But those could be changed mid-year, can't they?
Yeah, so we started adopting our rate structure 2 or 3 years ago via resolution.
Okay,
Right.
so that can be changed. We can bring that to the next council
That's
meeting
exactly right.
and change that. And
All right.
then immediately introduce that. Because I don't want people to get a free ride. I want to collect the money, I really do.
Well, I support that, so.
What are the thoughts on, if we want to bring businesses back to the city, if you're within city limits, you use our garbage service?
I think that's it.
You can't
It's
make
a-
it mandatory,
It's,
can
you could,
you?
you could.
I was gonna say, I don't know.
But you
any
basically are
city-
saying we're going to put H&H out of business.
No, they still have all of their county and they can bid contracts in local towns, just like Swans does.
But we want to put them out of business in the city of Alliance. Is
No.
what you're saying. Yes, we do. Yep, that's exactly what you're saying.
No, because I'm not saying it has to be the whole city, we can make the area wherever we want.
Okay?
So they can still have their trailer parks or, Trailerville and Meadows, which is the agreements that we have, the only agreements that have been found is for those two. So I guess I just don't understand why cities over years have let them encroach upon basically our business to make our enterprise fund pay for
I wish I
itself.
could answer. I can't. And I agree. I wish we hadn't. I wish that we are in the situation that we're in. So we got to figure out what we're going to do from here.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, Seth, when we spoke, we're one of the only quote-unquote hybrid that has this
That I'm aware of, yeah.
handshake agreement.
Yeah.
In the panhandle then, would you say?
Well, in my career, because this is the
Oh,
first time I've
really?
ever come
Oh,
across
in
it.
your entire career? Oh.
He said, I'm not sure I know of a city that lets,
It's either one or the other.
yeah.
Usually, yes.
And I don't wanna put out a long-standing business either, and I don't think we would, because they could still have their roll-offs and rural customers who could bid surrounding towns, Hyannis, and still have their business that way. But I think, when it costs the city money and the people that are paying the rate to have them use our landfill, we're doing a service to our citizens. I mean, would it allow us, I have no idea, and I'm hoping the rate study will help. If they're paying the $139 a ton that it actually costs, and because they're bringing in $300,000, which is a deficit of, figures I have, $218,000, would mine, as a citizen, would my garbage service go down from 25 to $15? I mean, is it right to have the other people that pay the rate?
Yeah, until we get the rate study done, I don't think we have all those answers to it, right? And that's why, another reason for postponing this until we have real information on what we're making decisions about. But,
Roland J isn't here for any input from him either,
yeah,
so he couldn't be here tonight.
right. So what are we allowed, as a discussion item?
I think it's appropriate if you wanted to make a motion that you're directing Seth to hold on the implementation of the new rates. Isn't that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's appropriate.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we direct Seth for a pause on the new rates.
And to review the ordinance, and I would second that.
So they're gonna stick with the old rates, which is, somebody have the old rates off the top of their head.
Well, bachelors are only paying a residential rate, there's a bachelor aren't paying any rate at all. And that's the one I want to fix that loophole. Right, but I want to do it at a rate that is not going to push them to go that competitive.
If I'm understanding correctly, what we will end up with is probably a two-step implementation process. One is trying to close those loopholes, introduce possibly a third tier, and then coming back with the rate study in a couple months, and then any updates to the ordinance as a complete package, because there will be some other questions that also need to be answered, including the franchise agreement, or the stance of the city council on that. So I would foresee, from what I'm hearing, that this would be a two-step process.
So the people that are paying the commercial rates now will continue.
Have you seen a list of who's paying commercial rates? Okay.
And so the ones that are paying residential, they continue that. And
At
the
least
ones-
until we can come up with a, potentially another rate to charge a commercial level that's cheaper than what the two that we have now. And that would be my preference, is that we come up with something comparable what each charges for small businesses. And then we'd have to define what a small business is. Is it a business with no employees, or a business with no more than 2 employees, that type of thing. To try and base it on how much refuse they're really gonna generate.
And so what do we do with all of these for the next 3 months?
No, not for 3 months. I'm saying those are the groups that I want to get into some kind of a rate that they're not paying now.
Okay, so you just want to put everybody under this rate for now?
Well, no, I keep saying, I think we need to come up with another tier in the commercial rates that's more competitive with what they could get from H&H. Which would be a little bit higher than the residential rate, but not $60 a month. So, and I'm not asking for, we can come back in the next meeting and make that, introduce that rate change at the very next meeting. What I want to pause is forcing these people into the existing tier structure. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
I think, just to be clear on the motion, Seth, so my recollection is that there was only a couple of the rates that were held over to February 1st, is that right?
That's correct.
So it'd just be those rates that you want to continue to hold over until there's a resolution, not all the other rates, correct?
Want to might be too strong of a word, but yes.
What's too strong a word?
Want to, yes.
Well, I think that the intent of what they're telling you,
Yes.
directing you to do is just those rates.
Correct.
Is that correct on your motion?
But in the meantime, how do we decide? Because I'm looking at some of these, and I will agree that they're small business and probably a little trash. But there's a couple construction places.
Construction companies fall under something different under the ordinance. As far as construction revenues. I'm saying that we can come back at the very next meeting and adopt a new refuse structure, commercial rate structure.
So then we're only 17 days late then, because it was supposed to start February 1, isn't our next meeting the 17th showing?
It might go into effect March 1 instead
Okay,
of February.
all right.
So we could come back at the very next meeting and I'm more than willing to do that. Come back at the very next meeting and adopt an updated commercial rate structure.
And we can do that in a resolution, right? We don't have to do that.
That is how we have been adopting our.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So we don't have to do the 3 readings.
Doesn't have to be the 3 readings
Correct.
then? Okay.
Yes, I apologize. The ordinance says that new rates, the rates are updated on it.
discussion. So, Clerk, are you clear on what we're doing?
Yes, I have the hold the increased rate until a new resolution is brought back at the, February 18th meeting and to review the ordinance.
I don't think it's specified that we would necessarily bring that, we would ask to be paused until we could address, to clarify the rate structure. So I don't know that, I'm not gonna speak, you made the motion, Travis, is that?
So you don't want the rate ordinance to come back at the 18th meeting?
I'm not saying that we don't, I'm just saying I don't know that the motion said that we would, so I want to clarify it with Travis, since he made the motion.
I think the rate ordinance would take longer.
Correct.
Well, we would probably implement a temporary rate structure until the rate study came out.
Yeah, my intention with the motion was pause the increase that we were going to implement, or supposed to implement on the first, to allow us time to review the ordinance and to, in a two-step process, get to the rate structure. I think if we can make that motion of pause the increases to allow us to restructure our rates, and then do the study, get the study done, where we have accurate information on the amount of refuse. I think that would be our best route,
How we can put that into a motion.
And Casey, you seconded it, is that the way you understood it? And I guess, Shelby, the only thing I was trying to clarify is that I don't want it to, if for some reason we can't come back at the next meeting with a different rate structure, unless that's okay with everybody, if you want to put that into the motion, then we will come back at the next meeting with a proposed rate structure. Different than what we
The
did.
issue I have with that, if we do, we don't have current trash cans to implement a new rate structure. We can't provide the service to that person.
I think we still put it in the rate structure, we just, they may have a bigger, receptacle, but we just have to rely on the fact that these are relatively small businesses, they're not gonna generate that much.
I'm okay with that. I mean,
Okay, so we are gonna put in the date that we're gonna bring it back at the next meeting. Okay, we will, I want, Shelley, I was just trying to clarify.
Nope, you're good. I just wanted
I
to
mean,
make sure I get it
Yeah,
correct.
I understand. No, that's what I'm trying to do.
Expediency.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we're.
I don't want it to drag.
A couple $1,000.
Yeah.
Unrealized, so the expediency to sort this out would be, yeah.
And they could just use the containers that, like the dumpsters they have now, since we don't have the ones currently.
Right.
We can get it.
Because I think there's a lot of stuff that we need to take a look at, and in going through the ordinance, I think we're gonna be able to make some good decisions. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Clerk, you are comfortable with what we're doing? Okay. That's the most important thing. Yeah, all right. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Turman,
Yes.
Councilman Liptak,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mashburn,
No,
and Mayor McGee.
Yes. Okay, there being no further business, I don't believe, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.